when you go to court. So is the final judgment based off of preference, or is it like money? And like, it seems like the copyright issue doesn't come up until money's involved, and I don't understand, like, when you go to court, does the judge base it off of, I believe someone said earlier that about the royalty fees and how it's based on how many days you perform and things like that, where as far as image goes, is it how much of the image you use, or is that a preference thing that the judge decides, or is it just like final? I don't.
Well, I think somebody mentioned it on their slides, and where you said confusingly similar. Did somebody say that?
Substantial similarity.
Yeah.
That was two questions. The first question is it always about if money's involved? And my answer is no. There's a very famous example of a Dilbert cartoon that got distributed for free. Well, the problem was nobody wanted to see the syndicated version that, you know, is paid for and et cetera, so it was loss of income. And they made the person stop, even though it was just distributed on the intranet to a company. No money changed hands, but basically they were infringing on the person that designed Dilbert's right to make a living. So money does not have to change hands. You can just cause loss of income.
Well, and I'd like to clarify one thing. You said is about royalties. Royalties are set by the copyright holder. The judge really doesn't get so involved in that. What happens is the copyright holder claims an infringement, and if the court decides there's an infringement, then they award damages.
Like you said, substantial similarities, and it's about how much of that has to be, how much of the image has to be in something for it to be similar. Like, how much do you need it?
As much as I understand how much you can appropriate from the original in your reproduction of.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any percentage. I mean, I think that, well, no, I should say that the law is designed to discourage it because it wants to encourage creativity and development.
But I think the four factors for fair use play into your question. And the two Jeff Koons cases are examples of one being fair use of copyrighted material and the other not. I think collage has become such a commonplace art form in our culture. And I think there's a real distinction between using other people's art and creativity. I don't think, say for example, a collage artist who's cutting images out of magazines is less creative than a painter who's painting a landscape from nature. They're both, to me, creative acts, and one that's using imagery from another doesn't inherently make that work less creative. I think acknowledging and legally acquiring the rights to use other people's source imagery in your work is important. It's important to acknowledge your sources of inspiration, not just on an ethical level and an artistic integrity level, on a legal level. It's important to do that. But I really think that there's a conflation between creativity and using other people's imagery as somehow less creative, which I don't see that as the same. So I don't know if that helps.
I agree with Jessica, and I'd just like to add that I think one of the determining factors to answer the second part of your question is the altering of the image. Again, are you bringing something to the conversation? And that means, you know, is it the same medium? Are you changing the expression? And also, what is the use, the purpose of the piece?
I would have a question for Gary. But we are going to be with the issue of appropriation. And we know about appropriation in music, not the copyrights, I mean, that you have explained. This is one aspect, but the other aspect is appropriation. We know that so many composers appropriated from...
The copyright often states no parody. And a parody in music is an adaptation or a copying or reusing it in a different format without permission of the publisher. So no parody. And that would include recordings and every possible way, reproducing in any form is the term they use, and that basically covers everything.
And what about the attitude in appropriation matter if, for example, the subject is totally changed and what you said, it could be parody of what the artist or whoever is the composer did. What's in the visual arts? How do we judge about this? If you totally turn, for example, Dali did with Mona Lisa, added, sorry, but Dali too.
Yeah.
Duchamp did something else, but Dali added his mustache, so.
His face.
Face,
That's right.
yes.
His face.
So what we can say about that? What kind of appropriation? Is this acceptable?
That would be
Definitely is.
commentary. I mean, that would fall under commentary.
Okay, so that will fall into the commentary of the previous one. Okay.
I was wondering, when a copyright issue does come up, how do they determine if the image is altered in a way that does not copy the original? How do they determine how much you need to change that? How much the image was changed from the original? Who decides that?
Well, just as a practical matter, what would happen is if the copyright holder, by the way, doesn't mind or doesn't complain, then there's really no issue. But if the holder of the copyright decides that they think another artwork too closely infringes upon their work, you know, they take it to an attorney, and the attorney, who hopefully is well versed in that area, will decide whether or not to take the case. If the copyright is not registered, you would probably, I digress for a moment, but you'd probably have a very hard time getting an attorney to take the case. And then if the attorney feels that you have a good legal issue, then they go forward with the case, and you're left to the trier of fact, which is usually a judge.
And they will represent you then and present your case. Yeah.
Right, and the penalty is actually quite high. It can be as much as $150,000 for one reproduction.
Right.
One more question from the public.
Thank you. I have actually two questions. I've been hearing a lot about copyrights and trademarks. I would just like to know, how simple is it to get a copyright, and also how does it relate to, how could you relate copyright, how could you get copyright for a portrait of a person?
Who will answer?
They were talking
Michelle?
about registering. As Professor Rabatin said, things are automatically gain a level of copyright the minute they're finished and published. Okay, as long as they've jotted down in a concrete form. A child's finger painting is copywritten. Now, registering a copyright is what she was mentioning. She said it's under around $30. You
Right,
just
that's
send it
done
in. It's
right.
just something you file, and you can even do it online now.
It's done right here in Washington, D.C.
Right.
on Independence
So
Avenue.
it's just paperwork, and the rules are online. It's
You can
real
find, I
simple.
just saw them today. I went, it's $35, and you submit a reproduction of your work
But
to
you can put
represent
the
that.
copyright notice on your work the minute it's published and completed.
Can I jump in? By the way, if you're copywriting a website, you might have several copyrights that you have to do for photographs, for text, for visual images.
Remember years ago, photographers used to take a single 16mm frame of a whole lot of photographs and copyright it as one piece.
Right.
So you can probably
Can
do
gang
with
it up.
videotape now and copyright it as one piece and pay one fee.
Okay, I think this is a very hot issue, as we can see. We could stay additional hours and probably not solve the problems, that we will be in a very fine discussion. Unfortunately, we have to stop this discussion, and I want to thank you all and to thank my panelists for being so inspiring today, and hope to see you in April in the next panel. Bye.